Hello everyone, welcome to today's lecture. In our today's lecture, we are going to learn about a transmission control protocol. So let's start. So TCP stands for a transmission control protocol. It is a standard for exchanging a data between different devices in the computer network. In our previous lecture, we have seen that in the transport layer, the protocols are used is a TCP and UDP. They are the responsible for exchanging the data between the two different networks. So TCP is a connection oriented protocol, which means a connection is established and maintained until the application program at each end have finished exchanging messages. So in our previous lecture, we already learned about what is a connection oriented. So connection oriented means in any connection oriented service, there must be one connection for communication, there must be a connection was created. So the TCP is a connection oriented protocol. So it means that it requires a logical connection to be established between the two processes before data is exchanged. The connection must be maintained during the entire time that communication is taking place. Then then release afterward. So this is the meaning of connection oriented. So here the connection is first established between the client and server. Next is TCP allows for a transmission of information in both the directions. This means that computer systems that communicate over TCP can send and receive data at the same time, similar to the telephone conversation. So here the TCP is, or any TCP connection is a full duplex. At the same time, both can send as well as receives the data. The protocol uses a segment or as a packets as the basic units of data transmissions. So what is the input of that protocol? The input is a packet. As an input, it receives the packets and that packet is delivered to the next layers. So this is a basic of TCP protocol. In short, we all know that in the transport layer, the data exchange is done and that exchange is done with the TCP protocols. So TCP protocols provides us the multiple steps, and by using that multiple step we can establish a connection and we can send the data. So that is why the TCP protocol is very important. The steps given in the TCP protocol is still nowadays we are using. So it is a very important protocol. Next is the features of transmission control protocols. That what are the features is provided by TCP. So TCP is a reliable protocol. So it means that is the receiver always sends either a positive or a negative acknowledgements about the data packets to the sender, so that sender always has a bright clue about whether the data packet is reached through the destination or it needs to be resended. So TCP is a reliable protocols. Reliable means it provides service like if we are sending a data to the receiver, then at the receiver side it must respond with some acknowledgement that yes, I have received your message. So that type of message is provided by the TCP, so that so the sender makes sure that his message is sent successfully, and if message is not delivered, so at that time TCP provides a negative acknowledgement that your data packet does not receive to the destination, so please retransmit it. So that is called a reliable service. For example, in our WhatsApp we are sending one message, yes, until the blue tick is done, until the blue tick is shown, and we can't show that the message is read by the receiver. So this is called the reliable. After that blue tick, we make sure that yes, our messages are shown by the receiver. So that types of service is provided by the TCP protocol. So on the network, if I send one mail or if I send one message on that on a computer network, so it provides us a notification in reply, or we can say that it provides us an acknowledgement that your data is sent successfully, so that we make sure that our data is successfully received by the receiver. So that is called the reliable. So this service is provided by the TCP protocol. Next is a TCP ensures that the data reaches intended destination in the same order it was sent. Now if I write a message that I am XYZ person, yes, but we know that the whole message can't be sent over the network. That message is divided into the packets by the transport layer. So here the packets is also divided by the frames, yes. So each packet has their own sequence number. So when the data packet is travel on the network, the order is not as so the sequence number is become the unordered. So at the end of the receiver side, TCP take care of that it maintains the order. First it collects all the unordered packets, and then TCP is the responsible for sorting that packets based on their sequence number and create one new message, create a packets of that message with the sequence number. So this is done by the TCP protocol. So that is why our message is successfully received at the receiver end as we signed. So that is done with the TCP protocol. Next is TCP is a connection oriented. That I already said that TCP requires that connection between two remote points to be established before sending actual data. Yes, so it is a connection oriented protocol. So if we are using a TCP protocol, so the first step is we are creating one connection. After make sure that connection is successfully created, then after we'll start sending our data. So that is the rules that is defined in the TCP protocol. TCP provides a error checking and recovery mechanism. TCP provides end-to-end communication. TCP provides a flow control and quality of services. TCP operates in the client-server point-to-point mode. TCP provides full duplex server. It can perform roles of both the receiver and the sender. So these all are the features that we already learned in our OSI model, that this is provided by the transport layer. But in the transport layer, the TCP protocol is worked. So that function that we already learned, that all that function is provided by the TCP. So these are the features provided by the TCP protocol, and the TCP protocol is work on the transport layer. That is why we can say that these all functions are provided by the transport layer. So TCP has a many features. It is a very secure protocol. With the help of that protocol, we can very easily communicate we can very easily communicate over the network. So that is why it is a widely used protocol. Now as I said that TCP is a connection oriented protocol, and it requires the connection between client and server, or sender or receiver, before sending the actual data. So how this connection was established? So that is established in the three phases. First phase is connection establishment. After the connection establishment, the data will be transferred, and the third stage is connection termination. So let's understand how the connection was established with the help of TCP protocol. In short, simply remember that TCP provides a set of rules. We are just following that rules to communicate over the network. It is same like one recipe. Suppose if we follow the recipe of how to make a cake, so it has a list of steps. So if we follow the exact same step, at the end of that steps, we have a cake on our hands. So the rule is same as a TCP. Same in the TCP. TCP provides a list of steps. If we follow that exact if we follow that exact steps, so by using that we can communicate over the network, or if at the end of that steps our message is transferred to the receiver. So that is the main so that is the overview of TCP protocol. So let's understand how TCP is established the connection. So before I will understand how to establish the TCP connection, these are some terms that needs to be understood while we'll understand the establishment of the connection. Here the term sync means it is used to initiate an establishment of the connection. It also helps you to synchronize a sequence number between the devices. So sync means a synchronization. Acknowledgement, ACK means acknowledgement, helps to confirm to other sides that it has received the sync packet. So ACK means acknowledgement. Sync acknowledgement means it is a synchronized acknowledgement. And fin means used to terminate the connection, means the final step. So these are the terms that will generally will used in our later slide. So that is why I just to give you the introduction. Now the TCP connection establishment is called the three-way handshake. So how the connection is established, that the steps with the help of the state we can establish the connection. This process is called the three-way handshake. So let's understand how we can create that three-way handshake connection establishment. So for that, first let's understand this figure. So this is the figure of three-way handshaking or the connection establishment with the help of TCP. So let's assume that this is a client and this is a server. Okay. Now the client wants to send some data to the server. So for that, a client use the TCP protocol. So TCP is the connection oriented protocol. So that is why connection establishment is the first step. Yes. So for that, client initiates the establishment because client wants to send some data to the server, or client wants some data from that server. So the communication is created by the client. So now state, when the client sends a synchronization, means this is a one message from the client that this is a sync and this is a sequence number. Now because we all know that with the help of sequence number we can identify the packages, which is the first message, which is the second message, based on that sequence number. So that is why client sent the sequence number with the message. So here the message is sync, and client signed a sequence number 100. So client said that the message is sync and the sequence number of that message is 100. So this message is sent by the client to the server. So at that time the state of the client is sync sent, means message was sent by the client. Now at the server side, that sync message is received by the server. You can assume that this sync message contains hi message. Okay. So at the server side the message was received. So that is why the state is changed to the sync received. Now if server wants to communicate with that client, then server also sent one message. So server sends a acknowledgement to the client. So here is a acknowledgement, sync acknowledgement. So here server sends the acknowledgement of that message. So here the acknowledgement of that sync message of hi, the message was hi, and server said that yes, I received this message hi with the help of this acknowledgement. also sends a sequence number, their own sequence number, and also send the acknowledgement of the sequence number. So every time the sequence number is increased by the 1, so that the sequence was maintained. So this is the client sent the first message, sequence number is 100, server acknowledge of that message. So here the acknowledgement is a sync acknowledgement and the sequence number of that acknowledgement is 101, and the server message sequence number is 200. Now because server sends an establishment acknowledgement, so that here the connection is established, so state is changing from sync send to the establishment. Now the connection was established, so now the connection is established, so the client sent the acknowledgement to the server that yes, I received your message. So here he sent the acknowledgement, yes, and so because the sequence number of server is 200, so it increase it by the 1, so sequence number become the 201, and it provides the acknowledgement of 101's message. So it is also send a sequence number 101 here. So now both the side on the client side and the receiver side acknowledgement is received. So the state is both the side state is changing to established, so connection was established. So this is the whole process of three-way handshake. So let's understand each terms. So the actual process of establishing a connection with the TCP protocol is as follows. Like the first, the client is requesting. So the first the requesting client sends a server a sync packet or the segment with a unique random number, and this number ensures the full transmission in the correct order. Yes, so this is the first step, that client sends a synchronization packets and sends a unique sequence number. Second step is, if the server has received the segment, it agrees to the connection by returning sync acknowledgement. So it provides the acknowledgement of that sync packet, including the client sequence number plus 1, and it also transmits its own sequence number to the client. So here it sends a sync acknowledgement, client's acknowledgement number plus 1, and its own sequence number 200. Now the third step is, finally the client acknowledges the receipt of the sync acknowledgement segment by sending acknowledgement packets, which is in the case contains server sequence number plus 1. So here now client received the message and client acknowledgement to the server with the help of acknowledgement and sequence number increased by 1. So this is how the connection was established. Now the sequence number on the both ends are synchronized. Both ends can now send and receive data independently. So now the handshake process is created after the connection is established, or we can say that if both the sides state is changing to the established, then connection was established, and now both client and server can communicate with each other. This is the first step. The second step is data transfer. Now the connection was established. Now if client wants one data from the server, so he sends an HTTP request to the server. Server fetch that HTTP request and send the data to client. Yes, now client received the data, so client acknowledgement about the data, yes, that I received my own data, or I received my requested data. So this is how data was transferred, or this is how data is transferred. After some time, if client doesn't want any data from the server, so the next step is connection termination. But since the TCP connection is established in the 3 steps, so the connection process is called the 3-way handshake. Now the last step is a TCP connection termination. So both the sides of connection can terminate the TCP connection, and even one-sided termination is also possible. So it is possible that clients request for the termination, and also it is simultaneously also it is possible that server first request for the connection termination, so that both can be possible. This is also known as a half open connection, where the other side is still allowed to transfer data even if one side is already disconnected. So if one side is closed for the connection, but on another side is also open, or another side is also open for communication, so that types of connection is called the half open connection. So let's understand how the connection termination how connection termination is happen in the TCP. So on the client send the final segment, it is called fin, to the server. Now server received the final segment, so it reply with the acknowledgement and with the sequence number +1. So now the client received the acknowledgement. Also at that time server also sent the fin segment. So in the TCP termination, first client sent the final segments for the closing the connection. Server receives that, so for that server sends, yes, I received your request for closing the connection, so for that it sent the acknowledgement. Also server also request for the closing the connection to the client, so for that server also sends the fin segment to the client. And now with the help of acknowledgement, client shows that the connection was closed, and client respond to the server's final segment, fin segment. So it sends the acknowledgement, sequence number of server +1. So and now server received the acknowledgement of their final segment, fin segment. So server now showed that the connection was, or so the connection is terminated. So this is how both the side connection was terminated. This is how the connection is created, data is transferred, and connection was terminated. So this is the whole TCP connection establishment or three-way handshake process. This is a very important topic because many question is asked in our examination also. So let's revise each things. So TCP is a transmission control protocol. It is a reliable protocol. It is a connection oriented protocol. So this is, so the TCP is connection oriented protocol. So first connection is established between both the side, and then after data is transferred. So for the connection establishment, it uses a three-way handshake process. In the three-way handshake process, client sends a message to the server. Server respond with the acknowledgement and sequence number. Now client also send the acknowledgement to the server and also send the sequence number. So that is how both the side connection is established. Now the data is transferred between client and server, and after some time, if they wants to terminate the connection, then client sends the fin segment, final segment to the server. Server responded with the acknowledgement and also sends the fin segment to the client, and client acknowledgement that final segment or closing the connection. So that is how, so this is how connection is closed at the both the side. So this is all about TCP protocol and TCP three-way handshaking process and TCP termination process. So that's it about today's lecture. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.